So Stuart, we both worked in the industry a long time. There was one question that I kind of touched on in my social media content this month, and that is how some properties, that can be two similar properties in an area, the same area, one of them gets inundated with offers, goes to a closing date and sells within a week, and the other one, very similar location, can sit in the market and hardly get a viewing. Just wanted to cover that in a chat today. What are your kind of opening thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, and you know, covered this a lot of times over the many years, but I think there's not a simple answer to it. There's a combination of things, in my opinion, and ultimately I think, yes, there's the demand versus supply scenario. However, there are other factors I think that do come into play, and again, you know, when I'm discussing this sort of example with an owner, to me, it's a combination of three critical things. It's a combination of being at the right price, it's the right condition / presentation, which we'll talk more about, and the location of the property. Now, you can't change the location, obviously. You can change the other two things, but the three things, in my opinion, overlap very, very closely. And the price is obviously determined by the location and the condition. And I think condition is really important. Presentation is really important. The price that we agree with the customer is really, really important. And they have to understand what we are saying, what we're advising, you know, the evidence that we're using, so that they hopefully we're in agreement. It's their home at the end of the day. But I maintain, I think those three things overlap really, really, you know, closely. Combination of price, the condition, and the location. And not all can be exact, and that can have an impact on the demand and why some properties sell extremely quickly and others can struggle.
It can take a while, yeah. So this is Stuart Ferguson. I'm Brian McLemon. Stuart's been in the industry for over 30 years, I think he told us last week in the first episode. Self-employed, and his specialism's recruitment. I'm Brian McLemon from BE Listed. We're based in Ayrshire and we do estates and lettings. So Stuart touched on the opening comments there, that location is one of the key factors, and Stuart's probably heard this a lot over the years. If I could just take my wee house and move it to that village, that would be absolutely perfect. Have you heard that before, Stuart?
Many times, yes. But obviously, they can't do that, and no. You know, we as the professional estate agent have got to give the right advice, the right help, and ultimately, you know, we are paid to do a job that the owner is happy with, and it's not always easy, and there are challenges along the way.
So you're telling me that the right answer to that question or that statement is not, you should buy a caravan then?
Correct.
Don't say that. So, the three things you touched on, do you want to talk about pricing first?
Yeah, I think pricing, again, absolutely critical. And obviously in Scotland, we have home reports which have an impact on the pricing. But again, it's not an exact science. The surveyors will do their job. I think we've got a difficult job because we as the estate agent go out and, you know, we've got to come up with a price for an owner. And it's very much a market value. It's a figure we anticipate that, all being well, that the house will achieve on the open market. Again, as I'm involved heavily in training new agents as well, again, there's a challenge in being able to show them how they gather the information, but that's all part of being a professional estate agent. So pricing is absolutely critical. The wrong advice, the wrong price can really create a problem with the sale. It can lengthen the sale, it can cause a sale not to go ahead. So the right pricing is important. We have a lot of data that's available. Yeah. Online, there's a lot more information at our disposal now than ever before. And that's really important. And I think more often than not, when you explain clearly to an owner, you know, how you've come up with information you are discussing, and you show them the evidence, I think that's really important. And very rarely does somebody not agree. Home reports come into play. I don't get too caught up in that. Mm-hmm. All I would necessarily say today is I don't think you can fully agree on an asking price and the strategy until that's taken place and you've got that definitive figure back.
I would agree with that, but and the home report is absolutely fundamental, but the marketing strategy, I tend to wait until the few days before we're about to go live, and what I like to do is just check what's happening in Rightmove, and like from a buyer's point of view, what's there, where is it priced, what's available, is there similar stock. I will obviously have the chat in the appointment about the marketing price, but I tend to leave that until the advert's ready, basically. And
Couldn't agree more. I think that's near the time, definitely. Yeah. And you're right, you've got to look at what's on the market. You know, are they similar, are they different? And it's very much, I think we have to treat everybody individually. And it's a personal strategy, both in price and the marketing campaign that we'll agree with that homeowner.
So, pricing is kind of covered there. What about, is presentation more or less important than the price? What do you think?
I think presentation is, again, critical. I'd put it up there and say it's very close to price. We could sit and argue all day about what's more important. I think price is critical, and I think presentation, again, you know, the way a property looks and what we do with it to market it fully is really important, because using a property that's been in the market for a long time, you know, with an agent, and it's not moving, and we can see that. And you know, I've sold many properties over the years that have come from an agent that for some reason has not sold the property, and some of those situations, it's very obvious that you can see a reason straight away. It could be the condition, it could be the curb appeal, it could be the price, it could be something around the house, it could be the marketing, it could be the wording of the advert, the photography. And again, we've all laughed at some horrendous photographs. Yep. So, you know, we both work with professional photographers. Yep. I can take a decent photograph, but I am not a professional photographer. And again, I think that presentation, the way it's set up, the way it's marketed online, is so important to catch that quick, immediate response, get a reaction, because what we do is about getting viewers out to see the property.
We've both been in a training course where they showed us the picture and we've taken it in portrait mode, and that's all you can see. And then they highlight to us that most buyers these days are looking on a phone, so it has to be in landscape mode to fit in with Rightmove or Zoopla, whatever you're using. They tend to do it the same way, and we've been told 2 seconds is what you get to have a look. So if your picture isn't standing out, if it's a crap photo, in other words, just get scrolled past. So the price is where it appears on the screen. So up at the top or the bottom, they tend to be priced high to low. That's the automatic. You can't change it. But the next thing you've got is those photos and a tiny wee bit of text that has to stand out. So the presentation, especially for the photos, is a big thing.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, a carefully written advert is important as well. And again, obviously nowadays here we are talking on, you know, on social media, and again, it's all more, you know, it's all the more relevant nowadays as well. That the various, that there are some platforms that work better in our line of work than others, but it's a combination of things, you know. And again, going back to pricing is critical, presentation is critical, the way it looks, the wording, you know, the way the advert's written, the people we're targeting as well. Again, I think that's something I've looked into and been discussing a lot more with a lot of the agents I've been working with, in terms of, are we targeting that property at the right market, at the right people, using a buyer's profile and incorporating that into the advert. So it's got me laterally thinking more about how important the wording of the advert is nowadays, not just the images that we use or the video, which is equally important. So I think it's really a combination of things, but the fundamental answer is presentation is absolutely critical.
Presentation. So you touched on video there. So video is now very common. And I remember working with Stuart a number of years ago, and we were still kind of discussing whether floor plans should be included, and is it now has to be included, a decent floor plan?
I've always been an advocate. I've worked with many agents who, some were lazy and just couldn't be bothered doing a floor plan in the days that we would do them ourselves. To me, floor plan's absolutely critical. The things I look at when I look at a property online, I look at the price, I look at the photographs, I look at the floor plan. Do I read all the wording of the advert? That's something, if I'm interested in the house, I will, but the bits that pull me in are the price, the photos, and the floor plan. Yep. The floor plan, I think only a lazy estate agent will not use a floor plan.
I'm not sure why people don't do them, because if you don't get them, you tend to get requests for them. And my adverts have usually got them, so they're usually there and measured, coloured, I think it's absolutely ideal to have them.
Yeah, and the tools available to all of us now, again, are far, far better than ever before. And again, the photographers that we use, they do that. And I think to answer your question, why do people not do it? Well, it's time and money. It costs us money to do it, and there's time involved in it. But it's to me, it's absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, you've got to get that costed in. I'm going to sneak in another question, Stuart. I've got the questions in front of me, and we discussed it previously, but something came up with me there that had changed from our previous agency, and it's something that I noticed. I was in an appointment the other day, and it was for a rental, but it has happened to me in sales, and I don't know if this has happened to Stuart, but the viewer was very, very grateful for showing them round, and I was quite confused because I thought it was, part of the job, so to speak, that when you're doing viewings or when you're selling or renting a property that you show people the property, but they seem to have put notes of interest forward for a viewing for a rental. And in the past, I've seen it in sales as well, where the estate agent just wouldn't let them in. And there can be reasons behind that, but it seems to be happening more and more these days. I tend to handle viewings. I'm interested because Stuart trains a lot of estate agents, what he teaches estate agents. Does he teach this? Do you teach the estate agents to do their viewings themselves or get the homeowners to do it? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm with you. I saw one of your posts of the day, Brian, and talking about viewings and what happened in a house, and there was this funny thing that had happened, and I have had that same situation of somebody lying in a bath as well, and more than that. However, I am, to me, viewings, as the agent, as a professional, we are the ones tasked with showing people around. We do it better. We know what we're doing. The people will give us more feedback. If somebody's wanting to make an offer, we get to be able to engage with a buyer face to face. We get a lot more information that allows us then to take that information, especially around an offer, to an owner who can then make an informed decision on the facts. Is that person proceedable? Are they not? So to me, I think it's absolutely paramount. A good estate agent should be doing the viewings. I've always preferred to do it that way. I have done thousands and thousands of viewings in my day. I love going out. I love showing people round houses. I love meeting them. I love chatting to them. But fundamentally, it puts me in a better situation. It makes me more professional as I engage with the owner of the house. So I think you raise a really valid point. I think, again, it's a critical part of the process that we go through.
The other part I like is just the neutrality from the potential buyer, because they can walk in and they can make whatever comments they want about the furniture, about the wallpaper. They can just say what they want and they can have open chats. Whereas if you're around about the homeowner, you have to be a wee bit nicer and a wee bit more coy about it. But the negotiation part's the thing I like, because if I can agree not to experienced seller is doing their own viewings and somebody starts asking them about an offer, they can feel like put into a corner to do a deal. And they're not asking the right questions, like, have you got your home report? Sorry, have you got your mortgage approval? Have you got a lawyer in place? Have you got the funds in place? So we can ask questions like that to make sure that they sound like a decent person. They start answering around the corner that they don't know what we're talking about. We're not taking that offer to them until we've actually got that stuff sorted out. Whereas the buyer might probably won't know to ask these questions. So viewings are important. I'm glad I snuck that in. I want to know about this bath story, if that's all right.
We could sit here all day and I could give you way more stories than that. But I think suffice to say, in terms of part of the presentation of going out and preparing for a viewing, I have frequently found myself going out there and almost like being in the hospitality industry, where you're out there making a bed, moving this, changing that, closing the toilet seat, all these different things, because there's so many things that can influence what happens. And again, we're trying to help make a good impression. And it's easier sometimes when an owner isn't there that we can do that. Yep. I've had lots of scenarios, probably could write a book on it, probably should, of things that have happened over the years, and many stories to tell. But again, I think us, we are the professionals. Yes, the way I train agents is, this is a viewing, this is how you do a viewing, this is the conversation, watch me do it, do an open house. I love open houses because, again, I can speak to multiple people, and it's a really good environment to be involved in. And again, I think a little bit like I was saying earlier with floor plans, why do some agents not choose to use them?
Time and money.
It's time and money, and it's the same with viewings. It's time and money. Well, a good agent should be doing that for you.
I highlighted the point about the open days being very, very underused. Just having buyers in the house, banging elbows, coming up to the driveways, other people are leaving. The best question you get asked in these properties when you're doing the viewings is there anybody else interested? And if you're doing an open house, it's like, well, yeah, let's walk up the stairs, let's walk in the garden, there's somebody pulling up. What do you think? So absolutely brilliant way to sell a house and get the interest up and get the offers up. Moving on to the last question. If I'm a homeowner and I am considering selling within the next 6 to 12 months, what advice would you have for me?
I think critically, we're sitting here today as two professional estate agents, is do your research in finding an agent who is professional, who's trustworthy, who is prominent, who is knowledgeable. All these things are really important. It's not just down to fees. Fees for some are an issue, and I understand that, but it's finding an agent that you're comfortable engaging with. It's going to give you what you want. It's going to give you the right advice. So I think it's all about the research of finding the right person. We very much are what we term as personal estate agents.
Yep.
And that word personal is so important because it makes for a much better experience. We have the benefit of, we have been in the business a long time, and that experience, I hope, shines through. But my job is simple. I'm helping somebody. I'm helping somebody sell their biggest asset, which is normally their home. And there's an awful lot of things that can go wrong. My job is to make sure that I help them and that it goes right, and that all points along the way are going according to plan. And again, we'll be touched just back on price. If you've got to talk to somebody about changing a price, which does happen occasionally, it's like me saying to you, Brian, can you give me £5,000 and I'm just going to go and pop that in the bin over there? You're asking somebody to make a huge commitment, sometimes in a negative way, for a positive end result. But at the end of the day, I think fundamentally research. It's easier to look us all up nowadays. Do your research, plan, reach out, have a conversation, speak to us on the phone. For those that maybe have an office, go into the office, meet with us. And I think the simple answer is find the right agent, because we can make a huge difference to ultimately what's going to happen. And that comes back to the right marketing, the right perception, the right plan, and find somebody you like, you trust, that you want to work with.
Yep.
And that's the research I think you have to do.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks for coming along, Stuart.
Thanks, Brian.
Nice to see you again. We'll see you next time, guys.
Until the next time.